Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. I am your host, Andrew Claudio, aka GMAC, and it is finally time to preview the Knicks' second round matchup. I cannot believe I'm saying this against the Miami Heat, a rivalry renewed here at MSG. That the Knicks will be hosting a second round series, which is even more surreal that it is that and is also going to be Knicks Heat. And what better way than to preview this series and to kick things off than to welcome back to the show a man who once got under the skin of all of New York City by talking about Jalen Brunson and calling his incredible season, this revelation, the best bargain contract in the NBA. The guy we call him. I know that this cute thing going on with Jimmy Butler is they call him Himmy Butler, but like it's Jalen Brunson him as far as I'm concerned. And yet, joining me to preview this series back into the Lions' den, it is the one and only Giancarlo Navas. G, welcome back. Yes, that is that is Kurt Angle's music that you hear, ladies and gentlemen. The crowd is chanting, "You suck." Uh, Giancarlo, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, anytime we can talk Heat Knicks in May or late April, that's what it's all about, man. That's what this is for. A rivalry renewed. Maybe some kids may not remember. Some Josh Hart said, well, I wasn't even born yet,
Mm-hmm.
which made me feel old. I'm only 30, and it made me feel old. I was like, I mean, I know what happened there. Maybe because Josh isn't from New York or Miami, but I'm excited. I think this is an interesting basketball series, like from the X's and O's. I
Mm-hmm.
think both teams have very clear advantages and disadvantages that and two very well coached teams, and Thibs and Spo have kind of gone at it in the past. The Jimmy Thibs storyline going on, Jimmy versus one of his former teammates, redacted, and all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm excited to break the series down with you, and happy to antagonize New York. If y'all need a villain, I'll do it.
So that's where I'll start. Actually, is the Miami side of this because I've become a loyal watcher of the post game shows and the Hangover time, and I see how much of a party you guys have. I heard the post game the other night after you guys defeated the Milwaukee Bucks. Coming in with a ton of confidence, I see as far as getting through the Knicks pretty easily and getting to the next round. As you've broken down the X's and O's, and we'll get into some specifics and what happens in this series. Just your overall temp check of the fan base coming in. Is it like we just beat the Bucks? Of course, we're gonna beat the Knicks, or is it? Oh, the Knicks are actually pretty good.
I'm gonna be honest. I think the fan base is a little split because they're a little tormented this season.
Mm,
Obviously, the regular season for Miami didn't go well, right? They finished seventh, lost the play into Atlanta, and to be honest with you, one of the most stunning results of this postseason. I don't know what to call a play in, but the non-regular season. I mean, the way that Atlanta dismantled them after Miami pretty thoroughly embarrassed them the year before, came out no effort. Just it was a very weird game, and we all kind of thought, okay, well, this is done. They're going to lose to Chicago. Levine's going to go crazy. Then they produced whatever that was against Milwaukee. So I think some fans are like, okay, well, the juice is done. They're gonna play the Knicks, and it's gonna be a stupid series, and a lot of weird stuff's gonna happen, and they're gonna lose. And other fans are like, we just beat the damn number one overall seed. Like, are we supposed we just went through Giannis and Brook Lopez, and we're supposed to believe that Mitchell Robinson is better than them? So that's
mm.
kind of like the split of the fan base. Some of it's like, okay, well, reality will set in, and other ones are riding hot on like, no, 16 game season. We're here. We just got to beat a team. We just beat the one seed. Now we got to beat the 5 seed. We're better than our record. Let's do this. So I think there's a fair split in the fan base.
That's the craziest part about all of this, and not to. So you're 30. I'm 35. One of my gonna be 35. One of my first basketball memories is, at least as a Knicks fan, is '99. And the fact that the Heat are an 8 seed playing the Knicks in the playoffs is just so serendipitous and part of the narrative
Incredible.
that the Heat get a chance at revenge. Although I don't, obviously the Knicks are in a 1 seed and their season. I haven't even fully comprehended the fact that the Knicks like will be the favored team to go to the conference finals according to all the sports book. I'm not
I gotta be honest with you.
allowing myself to go down that road.
They're like a pretty healthy favorite, and I thought
Yeah.
it'd be more of a toss-up series. I wouldn't if I were like the odd. I mean, Miami was an 11.5 point dog going into Game 5 in Milwaukee, and I
Mhm.
thought it was almost even for Miami to win that series. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Vegas is kind of low on them. Miami was, by the way, one of the worst teams against the spread this year. So take that as you will. The Vegas didn't even have a good handle on them. So yeah, I mean, I just thought it'd be more of a toss-up series, I think. But I mean, I think it's justified that New York is favored. I certainly don't blame the odds makers for that.
So let me start here as we go to the X's and O's, because we're gonna get to some questions in our people watching live and if we're in the chat. But I have a couple questions to start, and I want to give you an idea to my head as how I'm coming into this series. And you once famously said on this podcast that, of course, the Heat would win because they have the two best players in the series. And whatever order you want to put it in, you have the best player in the series. The way Jimmy Butler's playing, I mean, I just saw him be the best player in the series that had Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I'm not going to dispute that.
Actually crazy.
Well, listen, I genuinely have no words for Jimmy Butler. He's the one thing that I just don't like. Oh, the Knicks have bodies to throw at Jimmy. Now I think there's like a world where he could steal a game or two. So we'll get to that, I'm sure, throughout this conversation. But whether the Heat have the two best or two of the four best, whatever order you want to put Bam in, like we're gonna disagree on that. Where my thinking is, and I'm coming into this conversation with the notion that my mind can be changed. I'm coming with an open heart and open mind that if you want to change my mind, you can. I'm sitting at the table saying change my mind. I think the Knicks have 6 of the best 8 players in the series. I think the Knicks
So you're saying after Jimmy and Bam,
after Jimmy and Bam, I think the Knicks, even if you wanted to say
I
they're
haven't gone
1 and 2, I think the Knicks are the next 6.
I don't think that's
where,
crazy. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy. And I haven't like gone through it like player by player, but like I guess, I mean, we have this conversation a lot, you know, like especially without Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero has a broken hand.
That's what I'm factoring in with no Hero.
Yeah.
You know, especially no Hero. And listen, I don't know how much of the Knicks Cavs series you paid attention to. I'm sure you saw it in your research. This version of RJ, and my God, this version of Mitchell Robinson that we have now.
Yeah, Mitchell's the guy that is like really I guess one of the really cool standout stories of the postseason. There's always like a couple guys. Terrence Mann, you know, was one of them last year or the year before. There's always like one of those role guys that really like steps up and everybody's like, whoa, like that guy has made a lot of money.
So is your thinking when you hear me say 6 of the best 8 or 6 of the top 8, like I need to change your mind? Like Kyle Lowry should be in that top 8 or one of the unsigned, or is it like, well, we have the one? Like,
do you want to go player by player
series,
so that we can kind of work this out together? I think that would be like
so I like got Jimmy 1.
I mean, we don't have to like rank them, but like Jimmy, Bam, Randall, and Brunson are the top 4
in
like,
some order.
I think in some order. Like that doesn't matter. Like those are the 4 best players in the series. You know, so after that, if you're, I guess, you know, Hero's not playing, so
Mitch, Josh Hart, quickly RJ.
Yeah, I'm
factoring in like this playoff version.
No, I would go. You know? I think those guys. I mean, because then you're really talking like Kyle, Vincent, you know, Kevin Love. You know, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, and you know, Andrew, what's funny is that I think this, and Miami's like a lot of people say like, oh my God, like the Miami undrafted guys, the project, it's crazy. That actually pissed the fan base off this season because it was like, can we get some goddamn NBA players to help Jimmy? Because like undrafted guys can be pretty inconsistent. So like, it's hard to gauge because I think those Knick guys are way more consistent, right? Like what Gabe Vincent gave you last series, like if we're gonna get that Gabe Vincent or if we're gonna get that Kevin Love, like we can have different conversations. But the fact is that like Max Strus has been like, you saw the Chicago playing game. Maybe the Strus was loose, right? But then throughout the season, you have like these like lows of like, oh my God, can Max Strus play? Caleb Martin, incredible last series. So like if we're getting Caleb from last season, I would be like, well, you know, I think like, you know, once we start getting down like Caleb, Quentin Grimes or stuff like that, like we could have conversations. But at the end of the day, like I do think the Knicks, like pretty much the role guys, like that edge goes to New York. And if Miami's going to win, their role guys have to like perform at the level that they've been doing or at the level they did last season, not what they've done in the regular season, which has frankly been incredibly disappointing to really Jimmy and Bam.
So let's go two different directions with this. The first one we'll go to is the Mitchell Robinson of it all, because what I just watched was him take the souls of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley over a 5-game stretch to the point where they were double teaming him and it didn't matter. That last game where he had 18 rebounds, 11 offensive, and he and Josh Hart together out rebounded the entire Cavs roster was one of the craziest things. Like, you're 5 games in, you still haven't had an answer for Mitchell Robinson, which is like great for us, but also just crazy that this is the way
with
the
that
series,
with that front line.
right?
Too.
Like I thought that was going to be the neutralizer, which is why I was confident this series was going to go 7. So knowing that and seeing the version of Mitch we got in the first round, as a Heat fan, what do you think their best strategy, their best plan is going to be to not necessarily neutralize Mitch,
like on defense? Like, what are they going to do to?
Well, so I'm wondering, do they just, because I admired what Spo did in the specifically in Game 5 where they put the ball in Bam's hands, and it's like, are you going to turn Bam into the initiator so Mitch comes away from the rim and can't be as much of a weapon on the defensive glass, or is the concern more the offensive glass because that's the key to the Knicks offense?
It depends, because like, you know, they might want it kind of depends how they match up. So if you're Miami, I think your biggest concern is, so New York has a really good offense, but their kind of shot profile is really weird. It's a very strange good offensive team. They really sustain their offense with offensive rebounding and free throws. They're Brunson in particular, really great getting to the line, and they're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league, and I think they're for sure by far the best in this postseason. I believe they were like second through the regular season. I think Memphis might have been number 1, but after Steven Adams went out, that totally changed. He is truly the offensive rebounder of all time.
Yeah.
So
same strategy though. It's literally the Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're Miami, you're like, you know, okay, well, we switch a lot, right? Which kind of leaves you open on the back end of Mitchell Robinson jumping over, you know, Vincent or Strus or whoever. So if you're Miami, you're like, okay, well, we have to contain. And I'm sorry to like bring other players into this, but I do think it's all like kind of tangled together. If you're Miami and okay, you have Julius Randle, who has not been the best playoff performer and also is on a bad wheel as an ankle injury, you know, that's a tough injury to play through. I know that Tibbs was like, he may or may not be ready game 1. That's not an easy thing to come back from. And if you're Miami, you're like, okay, well, the head of the snake is Jalen Brunson. He has been their best playoff performer this season. He has been their offensive engine. He's the guy that's going to get to the line, spray out the shooters, play make, all that good stuff, draw the help. You got to cut that head of the snake. And typically what Miami will always do is switch or load up on the ball, right? So you kind of saw it last year with Trae Young. You know, they'll show a lot of bodies. And what New York did a lot this season with Brunson was, okay, empty corner. We're going to kind of contain help. We're gonna put Kevin Love in pick and roll. That Miami shows Kevin Love hard, and Brunson is winning that matchup. So if you're the Heat, you got to send help. It's probably going to be off Hart. And now, you know, you're going to have Hart crashing. You're going to have Mitchell Robinson crashing. And you gotta really contain those guys on the boards. And I think that they're going to play Brunson a little bit more conservatively for that reason. They're going to play more drop like you saw in the Milwaukee season. It's not something that they did. You know, Miami likes the zone. They were a big zone team in the regular season. Even though New York isn't the best shooting team and you kind of want to kind of get them to shoot more threes, I think what you give up on the offensive rebounding end might not be something they go to too much. So I think they're going to play pretty conservative. They're going to play drop. They're going to really show help. They are going to help off Hart and those guys, I think for sure. But they're going to play more conservatively because of Mitchell Robinson and kind of what he's done as an offensive rebounder. And I think that's the key battleground, kind of that Brunson kind of side pick and roll with Love or whoever. And then on the other end, containing Mitchell Robinson. And I think that is like the battleground that will decide the series and how much can Miami take care of the ball.
Yeah, that's a Spo specialty, is cutting off the head of the snake. So I expect them to really game plan for Brunson, which is, I mean, this is like not an intelligent or eye-opening point to make, but it's why Julius is just such a big factor in this series. If they're getting this version of Mitch and this version of RJ, and Julius comes back and looks like he did in Game 5 against the Cavs, where he led the team in assists and only played 16 minutes before he re-aggravated the ankle. I'd also, and I trust Spo to already know this, but I don't think JB Bickerstaff did because it was his first time in the playoffs. I think Randall's fine. The reporting out of the Garden, because the Knicks are so secretive, was that like, oh, we'll see what he is for game one.
Oh,
And
they're
then
gonna prepare. They're
one
gonna
of the guys on
absolutely
the one of the
prepare
guys
for
on the
Randall.
beat was like, yeah, he like tweeted out, yeah, we were allowed to see shoot around and he was shooting fine. Like
Yeah,
he's
he'll
gonna be
probably
okay.
he might miss some time or he might look limited, but I think Miami's gonna, just like they prepared for Giannis. Like Giannis
Mhm.
went down and they, he missed those 2 games and they were ready. They were ready for when he came back because they were preparing for Giannis to play. And I think that's how Miami operates. So
Yeah. So the other big question I have, and like, yes, Jimmy Butler going off is, I think, expected at this point because we're on our third of the last 4 postseasons where he has shown the tendency to go off and have a legendary night. So I'm expecting a Jimmy Butler game or 2 in this series. But the shooting, my goodness, the Miami Heat in the first round. So it's why I, throughout my preparation, I kind of just ignored the entire regular season stats of it, like where they ranked offensively, where they ranked defensively, because I wanted to make sure like I prepared for this version of the Heat. Can I just, for everybody listening, everybody watching, here's some stats. So the Miami Heat shot 45% from 3 in the first round. 1, 2, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 players that took at least 15 threes shot above 40%, including Duncan Robinson, who shot 14 of 19 for 74% from 3.
he's back, baby.
Oh my gosh, Jimmy Butler with all. So I listened to or watched the pod you did with Nikias Duncan of the Dunker Spot, and the 35% usage rate and an under 10% turnover percentage
Insane.
is nuts. And I went and looked like how many players have done it in NBA history, and it's like AI the year he won MVP, MJ's first title season, Melo the year he finished third in MVP. There's 2 T-Mac seasons in there, and Kobe Kobe in 06, which is one of the best offensive seasons I've ever seen. Like that's what Jimmy Butler was in the first round, and he did it on like 60% field goal percentage and 65%
His
of
true shooting percentage was through the roof. I know that his free throw shooting kind of took a hit, probably the exhaustion, but he's a really good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
For
So
regular season.
the shooting low is the big thing that stood out to me as an outlier. Do you think, because the Knicks are going to play a lot of drop in this series, at least I think they're going to play a lot of drop in this series, and their real strategy this season, and more specifically in the Cavs series, was like we will pick certain guys that we will leave open, and like if you make it, then that person's going to beat us. Do you think the shooting's real? How much of a drop off do you expect if it's not? And who, if we as Knicks fans, should we be afraid of that if you leave them open, they're going to burn us?
So to kind of tackle all of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Miami's shooting started to pick up kind of like 2 weeks after the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
These guys started to shoot more like themselves. The numbers are there. And I wasn't so sure how much I was buying it because, the season prior, so the year that they made the conference finals last season, they were the best 3-point shooting team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all those guys that were really good in that season were really bad this season. Max Strus, bad. Gabe Vincent, bad. Duncan Robinson, bad. Like all these, Caleb Martin, bad. Like all these Oladipo, bad. Like all these guys who were like really, really good at kind of shooting the ball in space. Kyle Lowry, bad. They were all just like negative spacers this year. They went from really good to really bad. And then now they're really good again. So I'm like, as somebody who cares about the team, I'm like, and as somebody who like wants to cover and do a good job, I'm like, well, which is the real them? That I don't know. I actually don't have an answer. I would say that guys who are undrafted, like most of these guys, are going to have highs and lows. And I just think that's a product of Miami being super capped out and having to shop in the bargain bin, which is the G League and like second way players like Caleb Martin was a 2-way contract when they signed him, who's turned out really good and all that stuff. So they're going to have a little bit of a decline. I think the difference between Milwaukee and New York in their drop is obviously Milwaukee has the super deep drop. Mitchell Robinson plays really a lot closer to the level. I think New York also is like a little bit more willing to switch stuff. So if Duncan, Bam handoffs become a problem, I think they're comfortable switching that. I think like Emmanuel Quickly is like awesome. And he's such a good screen navigator. So, him or Quentin Grimes or whoever can be on Duncan. And you could switch that with Bam. And I know that sounds crazy. It's like, oh my God, we're going to switch our small onto a big. Bam is like not a guy who will post you up. He's not good at that. You can look at the numbers. That's not his game. He doesn't want to do that. And that's what teams have always done to them. And that kind of is what really took Robinson kind of out of his like kind of rhythm, which is why like he just recently came back against a Milwaukee team that won't switch, and he can, none of those guys can stick with him. So the pull-ups are going to be available to them. They're going to be tighter because Robinson's, Mitchell's going to be like a lot closer to the level of the screen. I think for some guys, it'll be more comfortable, like Kyle Lowry. I think he didn't know what to do with the amount of space that Lopez gave. I think guys like him who want to get to the basket are going to have a bit of an easier time against that coverage. But other guys like Vincent and Strus and Duncan are going to have a little bit of a harder time. So I think there's going to be a shooting decline. I can't even answer the question as to how much, because maybe they go back to like how they were in the regular season and they suck ass. And if that's the case, they lose a series. Like absolutely. Right. Like they need to have some sort of like, these guys need to hit shots because Jimmy can't do everything. And I think if you're like, I want to be like rah Heat guy, and I want to believe, but like I think like to expect Jimmy to put up the same numbers that he just did against Milwaukee, against New York, not even because like New York's a better defense, because I think New York was like one of like an okay defense in the regular season. I know in the playoffs they've been good. I think part of that is like Cleveland's anemic offense, which again Miami could be susceptible to. I just think like him doing that, like I just think with Jimmy, I don't like Bill Simmons. I'm sure like your listeners don't like Bill Simmons either. I only think Bill Simmons is good for contextualizing historical moments in basketball. So after the 56, I listened to the BS podcast to kind of see what he had to say. It was bad. Spoiler alert, as it always is. But he did say something interesting. He's like, and I've always kind of thought of Jimmy as like in that Kawhi, like that Kawhi kind of caliber of player. But the difference is like Kawhi is like, when he's available, which is a big deal, Kawhi's fucking consistent. Like Jimmy's not that level of consistency. So I don't know what we get. I know I've seen the numbers of Josh Hart defending Jimmy. It looks super favorable for New York. I'm not sure I'm there on that. And I know you asked me about the shooting and we're going all over the place, but again, it's all intertwined.
This is good. Go ahead.
Jimmy as a pull-up shooter, I just don't know how much you get. He started to cool off toward the tail end of that Buck series. So I don't know. I think that it's like a toss-up for the shooting for Miami. I do think that because the Knicks play drop, Miami's going to have shots available. And I think if you're like these limited role players, that's beneficial to you. You always want to go against a drop. Miami has historically always been good against drop, especially these role guys, because you have a built-in shot there for you. And I think that kind of comfort level, it's like worst case scenario, I have a pull-up 17-footer, which Thibodeau is like, yes.
Yeah.
And if you're a Miami role player, you're like, well, that's a shot I can get, and it's not a turnover. And I think if you're the Knicks, you want Miami to turn the ball over. You want them to force into long jumpers, and you don't want them to go to the free throw line, and you want an offensive rebound. And I think if you're Miami, and I say this in the nicest and also meanest way possible to troll the fans, I think if you're Miami, you want New York to actually have to play basketball, because they're going to offensive rebound you to death and get out in transition. And I think if you're Miami, you actually want to like, no, you motherfuckers have to play half-court basketball. You guys have to show us that you can shoot and you could do stuff. And I think that dynamic is like actually really fun.
I just don't know how they like what's their counter to their dominance on the boards is like the
Miami.
Thing. Yeah, Miami. Like what do they do to stop Mitch?
Well, like the thing with, I mean, Bam's a good Miami's a really good defensive rebounding team, and I think like Jared Allen's a toothpick, and Evan Mobley's like
compared
really young.
Compared to that, yes. I'm just wondering if it's gonna take two guys, can Kevin Love do it?
They're gonna
then
play
there's the Randall aspect of it. Then there's the Josh Hart aspect of it. Like the Knicks have multiple good rebounders.
I think the Knicks are gonna rebound well this series. I think like it's like I just think if you're Miami, you got to limit it. And I think Bam's like that's a young team. And I'm not saying like New York can't reproduce that, but I think like Spo's gonna scout that, and they're gonna be like, okay, well, we're gonna crash. We're not gonna. I mean, and that's what they did in the Buck series. They kind of like, okay, like one guy's back in transition, and it's like usually, whatever, like Vincent or something, or Strus or some charge taker, right? That's like the super Miami BS. And we're gonna crash the boards. It's gonna be like Kyle, who's really good rebounder, Jimmy, Bam, Kevin Love, right? All these guys are gonna crash, and between Love and Bam, you kind of hoping your two big lineups, you can kind of hold them off. I know that like Obi and Mitchell Robinson lineups together have been really successful, or Hartenstein and top end lineups have been super successful together. So if you're Miami, you're just like, okay, well, when they play those bigger lineups, we got to make sure that we size up, right? We can't go super small there, which is an advantage to New York. But I think if you can kill the drop enough, you can force them to downsize a little bit and maybe play like Robinson, Randall, like RJ as a front court. And if you could do that, I think that's a win because they're a little bit smaller and those guys are more perimeter oriented. So like those long rebounds, it becomes more 50-50 balls. I think that's kind of the way you can kind of finagle that math. Also, you defend well, you force guys to take long shots, all of a sudden, you can land a leak out in transition. There's ways to manipulate that. And I think it starts with their defense that has been shaky at best since All-Star break. So that's kind of where I stand on limiting.
I guess it's interesting for me to see who makes the first chess move. Or do the Heat decide we have to go small and force the Knicks out of the drop and force the Knicks to have to guard us on the perimeter, which takes away from their rebounding advantage. The offensive glass is really more what I'm focused about. Like if the Heat hit shots, the Heat hit shots. I think that's what the Knicks strategy is going to be. The offensive glass, like if Kevin Love's on the floor, that means like if Julius Randle can take advantage of him, I'll take it. Like if Duncan's on the floor, then that's an RJ matchup that I like. The Knicks are also going to have to hit shots this series, which is why Quentin Grimes to me is important. It's quickly needs to have a much better offensive series for sure. But I guess we'll see. Let's turn it over to the Knicks Nation watching live, if that's okay.
Hold on, I want to correct.
Oh, go ahead.
Because your chat did correct me, and they said that Obi and Mitchell don't play a lot together. You're right. It was Hartenstein and Obi.
Yeah, Hart and Mitch.
That's their second most used big lineup in the playoffs, and their plus 15 net rating with a 90 defensive rating. So that's huge. And their opponents are shooting 22% from three against those lineups in the playoffs. So that was the lineup. I'm sorry, it wasn't Mitch. It wasn't Mitch.
Look at you scouting the chat. You're prepared.
I haven't pulled up. Somebody called me fat.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Come on. Get creative. I'll never forget. One guy in middle school told me get the cellulite out of your ears. And I was like, that is the funniest fat joke I've ever heard. That's the bar, guys. New York, the bar is Lewis in middle school computer class telling me to get the cellulite out of my ears and listen to what I'm telling you. That's the damn bar, New York. Bring it. Bring it like your fathers and uncles and parents did in the 90s. Bring it. Let's go. I want real insults. Come on, New York. Let's go.
Oh, you wanted them.
I want the rivalry, bro.
You're about to get them, believe me.
I want your chat to come at me. We're having fun. It's Heat Knicks. Let's bring it back, baby.
Listen, I went on your show and someone said I looked like you if you grew up in a white neighborhood.
That was really funny.
The rest is kind of history. So I'm fully prepared for both sides of this.
I grew up in the suburbs of Miami. I
also grew up in like a very, very Hispanic neighborhood on Long Island. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
The funniest part about it.
I grew up around Colombians. I don't know where you grew up. Yeah, so I am.
Alrighty, let's get to the chat. Shout out to everybody watching live. Shout out to everybody that
like and subscribe. Support this man.
Subscribe, of course, and of course the Miami Heat beat. I recommend them. I don't know how much you're gonna like them after this series because they're gonna be talking a ton of shit on Hangover Time. But I enjoy the
come in chat, man. If you guys want to come post game and we go live, if you want to peek in and see what we're saying, come at us, man. We'll our host Alf, I filled in last week.
Alf is outstanding.
Our host, he'll go at you, man. He's from New York, so he'll go at Knicks fans.
In Hangover Time tradition, though, I don't know if you have anything. What are we drinking tonight? What are we drinking?
Today, it was water.
It was water. Red Bull. We're good.
I have a 7 a.m. flight tomorrow, so I just got off work. So,
well, hopefully you're able to get something before that flight. Wow, I'm gonna ignore the chat and get away from the insults. Okay, let's start with Ryan Huang, who has our first question. Thank you, Ryan, as always, for the
slandering Rick Ross.
Yes, they are. Guys, go after Riley, please. All of them.
Hey, thank you, chat, for going after Rick Ross and not Pitbull. We don't really claim Pitbull like that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like.
You claim Rick Ross though?
Yeah, I like Rick Ross. Yeah.
Okay.
Although he's a little annoying because like he said nice things about the Knicks, and I was like, buddy, you pick a damn side.
We're doing that today with Michael Rappaport. How he didn't.
There's no way you guys like him.
No, we hate him. But
yeah, I would hate him.
The thing with Rappaport is he he denounced the Knicks and was like in Brooklyn gear for
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
their
yeah.
playoff games. And he posted a video today like, New York is
I
back,
saw
folks!
that. I saw that.
And
We're
Knicks
united
nations
in hating
everywhere
that
was
guy.
just yes. Listen, I legitimately can't stand him, and I hope like bad things happen to his career. I genuinely don't like him, and I'm hoping that
Deep platform.
like I get it, hoping someone gets banned from MSG is like a touchy subject. That's the one that if he's on the list, it's like, oh, you know what? Okay,
Yeah,
I get it. You know what, Jimmy?
That's a win. That's a win.
That's a plus. That's a plus.
Win. Yeah.
Okay. Ryan Huang, thank you for the contribution, Ryan. As always, Ayo Giancarlo, I got a deal that will work for everyone. Knicks take the series in 5, and then the Heat, quote unquote, fans get to do their favorite May-June pastime early by hitting the beach and the club. Win-win, no?
I'm telling you, the May-June pastime is not that. It's too hot and there's too many tourists. It's a March-April thing. This is the time.
Thing.
It's a March, like the beach for us is March, April. It's way too hot right now. Maybe like some Labor Day holidays we'll go boating. It's too hot. That May and June is for y'all. When you guys come here, because you always leave your city to come live here, that's for you guys. April, March, that's for us.
I did August last year, so I get
it.
Yeah,
you club after the game. I mean, they get, we go to live doesn't start until like midnight or 1 a.m. anyway. So hit up Club Live after the game. That's how that works.
Thank you, Ryan. Josh so focused. That's a cute 8 seed that beat a Giannis deficient Bucks team. Hashtag NYK in 5 or 6. So what?
They beat Giannis. What do you want to say?
Like they did beat Giannis in 4 and 5.
Hold on. I want to say something to that person because I saw a hell of a lot of Knicks fans wanting to play the Heat and not the Bucks. So all I know is that y'all were kind of scared of them.
So I was terrified of the Bucks if Giannis was healthy.
Knicks fans talking spicy after we beat the team that y'all didn't want to play. Like what's going on? Because
now we have a chance to revive. Listen,
you wanted the worst team. You didn't want the big dog. So don't be talking shit now because you guys were like hiding behind the tables. Like, so are they gonna win? Are they gonna
listen? We appreciate that you eliminated the fraudulent Milwaukee Bucks for us. We appreciate it, and now we'll be stepping our way past you because we're the better team on our way to the conference finals. If that's okay, in the spirit of Josh so focused.
Absolutely.
There you go. Next up, Bernard Richardson. Respect to you, G. You lost your mind a few weeks ago, but you'll be good here once this is over very soon. I'm feeling respectful today. So hashtag Nixon 5.
You are welcome to believe that. I don't, I want listen, I think
I'll get your prediction before we
Andrew, you and I are rooting for a long series because we want the financial benefit of content. Yeah. So we want Knicks Heat in 7.
I would like Knicks in 7.
We would like a 7-game series for maximum $1.
Yes. I'm
not saying who wins.
My therapy bill.
I'm just saying, at the end of the day, when the Blue Wire direct deposit hits,
that's the other part.
You know what I mean? We're kind of, we're Blue Wire fam.
That's true. That is very true. Bernard Richardson with another one. He actually has a basketball question. Who guards RJ, and what team did they end up playing? Oh wow. He snuck one in here. All right. Who guards RJ, and what team do they end up playing on next season once they release this after the series?
Dog, I'm gonna tell you something. I don't want Max Strus here next year. So like, can we put Max on him and then we can get rid? I don't want to pay Max. That's my thing. But I imagine, I think Miami's gonna play a lot of it straight up. Like I think Vincent's gonna start off on Brunson and Bam on Mitchell, and then kind of Kevin on whoever, or maybe Kevin will guard Mitchell and Bam the 4. It kind of depends on who you guys start, depending on Randall, right? Because Randall usually starts at the 4, correct?
Yeah.
So I think Bam would start on Randall and then Love on Mitchell because I don't think they'll want Mitchell, Love on Randall. So I think Jimmy on RJ makes sense, and then Strus
on Brunson. Really?
No, Gabe on Brunson.
Gabe on Brunson. So then
I think they're gonna play the matchup straight up to start. Okay. And then they'll adjust as they go. I do think they'll keep the size. And part of that's like the rebounding, right? And Vincent's a pretty good point of attack defender. I think Caleb Martin is going to spend a lot of time on Jalen Brunson, which he did in their matchups in the regular. And that's like they like him guarding point guards. I think Jimmy will kind of be on RJ or Josh Hart. Like they want Jimmy to help as well. Like they want him at the nail, kind of helping. So they like
Mhm.
to put him on something. I mean, he'll guard guys like straight up when he has to, but I think for the flow of the game, they'll kind of move him around. But I do think he'll spend a lot of time on RJ.
That's fascinating. Okay.
Why? What did you think they were gonna do for
I
RJ?
thought the best recipe for Miami's success was that third game that the Heat won, where the Heat, well, it was Tyler Hero that they just kind of let RJ cook, and RJ had one of his best games of the season then. But Jimmy started on Brunson, and it was like our two best defenders are going to guard your two best offensive weapons, and however many points you score, you score.
Well, let's
And
remember that Bam is dealing with a hamstring injury right now too. So
yeah,
I
that's
think
why
that
him on Julius is actually like, I'm not gonna say it's
it's
an
a fair
advantage to
fight.
Miami.
It's
It's a
a
fair
fair.
fight, right? Like Julius on one wheel and Bam
Well,
with that
that
hip
Bam
is
on Randall is more of a love on not on Randall thing.
right,
And
right.
if Randall's limited, they may try love on Randall and live with the result. That might be another thing that they do. So I think ideally you want Bam in screening actions, even if he's limited. I mean, you saw at the end of that Bucks game. I mean, he absolutely stonewalled Giannis, and that's kind of like the upside that you get from him. But I think he'll spend some time on RJ. Max will spend some time on RJ in the starting lineup. Nikias and I felt that they played this straight up with Vincent. They might go Jimmy on Brunson. That's an interesting wrinkle. We didn't really discuss that. I think we both kind of felt confident in that. But I'm a little worried about the foul drawing because I mean he's really good at, and I think you need Jimmy on the court in this series. That's another reason why I was like, I think he'll do it for important stretches, maybe not like to start.
Look, man, there's a whistle aspect of this series that
Oh, it's gonna be gross.
I'm worried it's gonna come into play on both sides. Like, is Mitch not able to be a weapon because Jimmy's got 3 fouls on him in the first half? Are the Knicks able to take advantage of what they've done all year by getting to the line with RJ and with Brunson and with Randall this series? So I'm very fascinated to see if not not to go full conspiracy theorist, shout out Bill Simmons, but if the league wants this to go 7 and we see the calls affect that way.
By the way, I want to clarify. I don't buy into that. Like even Milwaukee got like a pretty favorable whistle,
Especially game 5.
to
Yeah.
anybody. Like I'm talking only game 5. Like I think that was the only game that I felt like the whistle was a little weird. But listen, home teams sometimes get a better whistle because referees are humans. I'm not like a guy that I'll never be like, oh, bot series or whatever. I know probably people are like, you're a Heat fan, of course you don't say that. Even when it goes against Miami, I don't like that. And I think that's just generally bad for our league. And I think if you cover our league and love our league, I think, obviously we have to do our jobs like covering it, but I think that like peddling that stuff is like not fair to the players that earn it. So like if like I don't know if like New York gets a favorable whistle and Heat fans are like, well, the refs bought. I think that's like fucked up to like the league and mainly like the Knicks like players and coaching staff. So I don't like doing that. Like even Milwaukee got a whistle, but I was like they went to the paint and Miami didn't, and that's what like that and MVP whistle's a thing. That's not a conspiracy. That's just life. So.
Can I ask you a general NBA good for the league question?
Of course, yeah.
So there's a chance we're recording this, live streaming this at 5:40 p.m. Eastern. There's a chance if the Lakers and the Warriors win tonight that what happened?
Somebody called Bambi, and I thought that was pretty funny.
That's actually funny. Well done, Ben.
Because he's kind of like he's hurt and
it's
coming off the buck. I don't know if there was a buck pun there. Yeah, no,
Bambi's mom. Yeah, there you go.
That was very funny. B. Kim Gervey.
Yeah,
Ben Kim Gervey.
Shout out Ben. He's one of our patrons. So there's a chance if the Lakers and Warriors win tonight that like I'm cool. I'm big on historical anomalies and unprecedented things happening. There's a chance we get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8 advancing into the next round. Do you think it's good for the league, that kind of parity, and the fact that 2 play-in teams have a legitimate shot to make it to? I'll give the Heat the amount of credit or respect that like they were in the conference finals last year. It's not crazy to say they make it to the conference finals again, even though I don't think they're going to. But as far as good for the league is concerned, do you think it's good that the play-in now officially matters, that you can make the play-in and make the conference finals, maybe even the finals? Or as someone who experienced the Heatles and that big 3 era with the Heat, is it better when there's one villain and we're all shooting for him?
I think the villain aspect is good, which is why I think it's important. Like the Warriors are alive, right? Like they're like a huge heel. At the end of the day, like if Atlanta beat Boston and your second round is Philadelphia, Atlanta, Miami, New York. I don't really think that's good for the sport. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think you need like the biggest stars. Like, I think like probably like, Bucks, Knicks is like way more favorable for. I mean, I think Heat Knicks works because of the history behind it and the markets, and like there's something important there. But I think generally, it's good for the best players and the best teams to always be good. I'm actually not a fan of the play-in. I don't like
Really?
it. Yeah,
Oh
and
wow.
I think it's like I think rewarding the 10 seed is like kind of lame. I think like, you know what I mean? And as somebody that like, I I also don't like how it makes everyone buyers at the deadline. And I
Mm.
think that lack of activity, like teams think that, well, and guys like GM for their job, and they're like, oh, if we get in the play, maybe we can get in the round one. That might save my job. I'm not going to sell. And I just think that like that kind of stagnation is like kind of boring for the league. I don't like it, even though like my team was in it this year. I've been pretty consistent. I know that like, and for me as a fan, like, they lost against Atlanta, like, and it was pretty embarrassing. And I was like, yeah, that wasn't fun. And then they beat Chicago in like an exciting game. And I was like, I'm not going to pound my chest for beating the 10 seed. Like,
Mm.
it's just winning isn't even fun in the play-in. Like, I'm not Pat Bev. I'm like, that shit's embarrassing. Like, we were in the play-in and you beat a bad team. Like, I'm not gonna like chest pound. So I don't know. Maybe it's different. And again, like, I think, watching like such a historically like successful organization might feel different. Like if you watch the Timberwolves, and that's not like a shot at the Timberwolves fans, but it's just different. You know what I mean? Like,
It's a perspective.
I'm
Yeah.
not like
Like
far
yeah.
removed from like watching like teams in the finals, or like I've been to parades and ring nights and stuff. So like watching a playing game, I'm just like, this is like so lame. As opposed to like maybe like a Timber, even like as Knicks fans, like you guys have like seen and been through like a lot of like big stuff. And I think like winning a playing game just doesn't feel right. Again, that's my perspective, like as a Heat fan and as somebody who covers the team. So I think it's an unmitigated success. It is great television. The games have been really fun and dramatic. Like the plan as a product is fantastic. I
Mm-hmm.
personally don't like it. But I love watching the game, so I guess it does work. I'm just saying, like, I don't like it for my team or whatever. And yeah, so that's kind of my take on it.
So what it's done to the sport this year, all but 4 teams won at least 33 games. And the parity, I think it's created because there's just more and more teams thinking, well, we have a shot at the 10 seed, rather than making the pivot to being complete ass for the last 2 months of the season because we have no shot at the 8 seed. I think it's better for the sport. It created like the West was like a fun
Oh,
race
for
to
sure.
watch
Yeah,
in the second
absolutely.
half of the season,
I
But
like I like what EJ once said. He goes, "This guy's an idiot. Why is it better to reward the 8 seed who was maybe just a little healthier than the 10 seed?" That's actually a great point. And I actually, ironically enough, I thought the Lakers, the year that they beat the Warriors, I actually thought that was fair for them because like sometimes freak injuries happen and like you lose LeBron for like 3 weeks and that like tanks your season. You know what I mean? And that matters. So like I think that's like actually like a really good point that your chat made, even though they called me an idiot, which I am
shout
an
out
idiot.
chat.
Shout out chat. Listen, I am an
Yeah.
idiot. I'm a hater. I'm an idiot. I'm all the above. So you guys come at me.
There you go. Well, we're back to going the disrespectful route. Shout out
Let's
Josso.
go.
Josh so focused with another one in the super chat. I'm not feeling respectful. What was it that Giancarlo said New Yorkers have every right to say? What was it that Giancarlo said that New Yorkers have every right to say?
I don't
Something
remember.
about weight and intelligence.
What did I say?
What did you say?
I don't know. Can somebody remind me in chat?
Someone in the chat reminds
Did I
Giancarlo.
tweet it?
You might have said it on Twitter.
On
You might
this
have said it
pod?
on
Yeah, I
Hangover
don't know. Somebody
Time.
remind me. I say a lot of things.
Yes.
I've done. They joke in my chat. They're like, "Is it IRS after you've been on like every day for 3 weeks?" I've said so much stuff that I don't even know. I do YouTube as well. I do YouTube content for other stuff that's not basketball. I'm fried. I don't know what I've said, so please somebody remind me.
I think
it all melds together.
It was on John's saying it was on this pod. John, put it in the chat.
Yeah,
and
put it in the
I'll
chat.
Read
Put it
it.
in the chat.
I'll
yeah.
read it live. Yeah,
I'll answer
clearly
for my crimes.
Giancarlo's reading live, so he got you.
Yeah.
Dan Hidalgo, thank you, Dan, for your contribution in super chat. Gotta respect Giancarlo's passion, and he's not alone. There are a lot of analysts that have been sleeping on New York. Enjoy the roast, sir.
Can we talk about that? Because it's like we're a fucking 5 and an 8 seed playing. Like none of us are good. You know what I mean? Like Like it's like the mid. It's we're like the tier of mid. Like come on, let's be real, guys. They should like. I don't know, man. Like they're gonna make like one of these teams is making the conference finals because they got like an easy bracket. Well, I guess Miami, and even Miami in a way, like you don't have to play Boston or Philadelphia, and you don't have to play like another like Cleveland or anything. Like apparently, probably maybe that would have been more favorable because Cleveland really kind of wet the bed. But I don't know, man. It's like, and by the way, the Knicks are favored, so the analysts clearly are not sleeping on you because you're the favorite.
Vegas, though. That's Vegas, though.
You're the favorite. A lot of the analysts are picking New York.
Whatever the inside the NBA crew said last night about how they all picked.
That's like you're not good. You're not good.
Okay, that's blood of the
five seed.
Yeah, you're not good at Dykeman either. That's a shout out to that side talk video.
I love those videos.
So I'll concede that the Knicks will have had a much easier path to the Eastern Conference because you did have to go through a 1 seed. I'm sorry. I'm not discounting the fact that Giannis missed like all but 11 minutes of the first 3 games. So I have no idea what factor it would have made on the series.
I will say, listen, obviously like the Giannis injury, like any Heat fan that's like, no, that didn't factor in is like fucking crazy. Of course it factored in.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and like they did kick Milwaukee's ass when Giannis played the 2 games and the 11 minutes that Giannis did play. They were winning by like double digits, I believe. They were winning by some amount. I believe it was double digits.
Can I put that into context though? Because Giannis was on the floor for both of those fourth quarter collapses, which is what I think skews the numbers a tad. Like the fact that Bud, and this is like my biggest takeaway from those last two games. Like I rewatched both of them over the last 2 days. Like a better coach, I'll just say it. Tibbs doesn't lose either of those games. And I personally watched Tibbs every time the Cavs made a run, know exactly when to make the timeout, know exactly what adjustment to make, know exactly what lineup or substitution to make. There's literally 2 mistakes from the Cavs series.
I think Tibbs is a much better playoff coach than Bud. But,
easily.
I mean, that's part of the team you beat, right? It's like, I'm not playing.
I don't want to discount what the Heat did.
I know. And I'm saying like, I didn't, they didn't beat the Bucks with Greg Popovich. They beat the Bucks as they've been all year. Yeah. It's like you don't get to do a coach draft. Like, so like,
again, I'm trying. I know that probably sounds minimizing. I just like,
listen,
I think Heat path will have been going through a 1 seed. You cannot.
They got lucky, bro. But that's why like, and a lot of Heat fans like wanted to tank this season because like obviously like they're like, okay, well like this isn't going well. Like let's try to like get a better pick, and their Miami's cap situation is pretty bad. And one of the reasons why you play it out is because like sometimes you get lucky. You know what I mean? And by the way, Miami, when they went to the finals, they beat the Bucks healthy. Well, Giannis, I guess, got hurt that one game, and then they won the game without him. So Milwaukee won the game without him, and then he came back. Miami got hurt in the finals. They lost Bam, and they lost Goran Dragic, who was their leading scorer in the playoffs. Not Jimmy, it was Gogi. And they lost Bam in game 1. Bam came back, and he was like a husk, and he couldn't like move his shoulder. It was really bad. And Goran had like a really bad foot injury. Then in the conference finals, they lost Hero for 2 games. The last 2 or 3 games. They lost Jimmy for a game in that conference final. I don't think people remember that Jimmy missed time in that Celtics series. PJ Tucker was hurt. Kyle Lowry missed a lot of the playoffs and was playing hurt. He did not look like Kyle Lowry. And Max Strus was playing with an injury. So like they've had like a really bad like stretch of like bad luck, which that's basketball. Like you could say like at the end of the day they didn't win, and like I'm not saying that, but sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. So kind of is what it is. But like they got lucky. They beat the Bucks, and when Giannis played, like they answered the bell. They won. They were down double digits in the fourth quarter on the road against the 2-time MVP and the 2-time Coach of the Year, and they won. Like
I guess my big.
I don't know what is your chat? I don't know. What do you want to say? Like you could maybe say like the Bucks shit themselves, but like Miami had to hit shots. You know what I mean?
I think the larger point I personally am making is like I'm not like I do think a reset button was hit come game 1 of the playoffs, and the mid tier that the Knicks and Heat may find themselves in. I think I'm more of a subscriber to like, no, this is one of the final 8 teams. Like this is
and that's fair.
They may be 7 and 8, but like
they kicked Cleveland's ass. That was not a series.
That's
that
was
not
number 1
competitive.
Defense, top 10 offense, and
they
the
made
Cavs
that
were in
look,
game 5 not knowing what lineup to play.
That looked like a 1-8 matchup.
Yeah.
That's what that looked like. Like New York absolutely earned that, and they kicked Cleveland's ass, and they earned that. Like New York absolutely deserves their stripes and to be here. Like that, MSG, the vibe was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Biggerstaff was totally shell shocked. Tibbs absolutely coached
That whole
around him.
team. Yeah.
New York's
Mitchell. Good
energy
Lord.
was
Yeah.
crazy. What Josh Hart did, it's been celebrated a lot on Twitter, but give that man his flowers because he one of the best, if not the best, midseason acquisition in the sport.
It's him or Durant. It's literally him.
Oh, no, I'm
Like,
not counting
but
stars. I'm counting like role
oh
guys.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
Then
I
it's
guess it'd
him.
be like
Yeah.
him or Rui, right? Or I don't know who else is
Oh,
in that
Hachimura.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played really well, but I put Josh Hart ahead of him. I think the impact that guy's had is like incredible for New York. So like they deserve their flowers, man. I mean, like I joke and like we're 5 versus an 8, but like they're the 5 and the 8 that won, and it kind of is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's a fun series at least, even if it is 5v8. Josso focused again. Very curious to know what Giancarlo's prediction was prior to the Miami play-in game versus Atlanta. If the belief was Miami, does the inconsistency scare you? That I just want to point out is the craziest part about this. That the way we ended up with Knicks Heat is not the 4-5 that we were wondering if that was going to be the matchup, or even the 3-6.
We talked about that when I came on here.
That's why I was like, maybe we're headed toward that in the 4-5 matchup if like both of us can beat out Cleveland and Brooklyn falls off. And then that Brooklyn game on Udonis Haslem night happened. It was like, oh, maybe the Heat are falling into the play-in and we're never going to see them again. And here we are. They had to lose a play-in game, then beat the Bulls, which that was a toss-up going into the fourth quarter. And then this
Miami played like crap that game.
Both of these series happens, and we're getting Knicks Heat. So I guess to Ja's question, does inconsistency scare you?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of been the theme of this pod, right? Like you asked me, like, how's Miami shooting? I was like,
yeah,
fuck if I know. Like they've just been they've been like a mid team, and their like shooting's really inconsistent. Like I think the high end of what they can do is really special. I do think that they're still missing like a guy at the 4 who can like play wing and switch and stuff. Like that pillar of their defense is lost without PJ Tucker or Jay Crowder from a couple of years ago. Like that kind of piece is that like switchy wing 4 next to Bam is like not there. So I do think that like their high end compared to last season is like not there. And also Hero's out, which he's their second leading scorer. He is so important to what they do on offense. And no, their offense wasn't good, but he's like truly like this would have been the series that they would really need him. Because like, he's the guy that can create off pull-ups. He can hit more contested shots than the other guys. In pick and roll, he's better. I do think he's a target on defense, but they're gonna miss him on offense. I mean, they're gonna, if he's the guy that was consistent, and now you have to depend on more guys that aren't. That's another ball handler loss. So yeah, Ja, like the inconsistency does worry me. And I thought Miami, when I went into that Atlanta playing game, and bro, I thought they were going to win. I made plans on Friday. I was like planning my life around them winning that game.
I made
plans
on Fridays.
I didn't pick them to beat the Bucks.
Yeah.
I didn't think they'd be here. Like I'm not out here pretending like I knew the whole time. I'm going to the Kentucky Derby next weekend.
Oh,
like I didn't know that this was gonna happen. You know what I mean? Now I'm like, they play on Saturday, and I was like, I pray to God they have the 8:30 slot because I'm fucked. So life comes at you fast. Yeah, man. I'm happy with the kind of success and the way that Jimmy's played, but of course, inconsistency is like going to be a thing with this team. Like if they lay an egg against New York, I'm not going to say you're surprised. Like I'm not stupid. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've been doing Miami Heat for 10 years. I think I know a little something or two about the league. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I did pick them to beat Atlanta. And hey, credit to Coach Quinn Snyder. What they did, which was really good. That's the best defense they played against Jimmy. They put John Collins on him. They swarmed him, similar to what Miami does. They manipulated the low man in pick and roll, like as good as I've seen anybody do it in Miami. They made Kyle Lowry or Gabe Vincent the low man for Capella, kind of going to the basket. And I think New York can replicate some of that. So I kind of look out to see what they do there. But huge shout out to Atlanta for like truly Spo looked unprepared and the team looked unprepared for that game. So this is what it is.
That was that was Capella getting 21 offensive rebounds. That was the thought I had in doing some of the research. Is like, is this the formula, at least for the Knicks, to win a game before an adjustment's made, that like Mitch is Capella? And
so the difference is that like they stretched Miami out because they'd set screens really high. Like they weren't setting at the 3-point line. They were setting it like between the logo and the 3-point line. So Trey is absolutely a threat from there. You have to guard that. You have to play at the level or switch. And if you switch, well, now Trey's a really good passer and Capella's going to the rim. they had whoever Kyle Lowry was guarding in the weak side corner. So Kyle's job is, as the low man, is like to step up and rotate.
Mhm.
If you're at the nail, like where Jimmy is, you can kind of Atlanta had enough good shooting that they had to hedge in. It was just difficult. And Trey was playing really well. I don't think they get enough credit for what a good game plan. I don't think New York can super replicate it because I don't think that Brunson is like the shooter that Trey is off the bounce from so far away. But like, do you think
The
is
depth
the
of his
depth is
threes.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
okay, that's
It was
fair. That's
specifically
fair.
like they like literally stretched the floor by setting these really really deep screens, and Miami had to respect Trae Young's shooting. And if that's Brunson, I think Miami could play that more conservatively and can contain some of that. But if Brunson's gonna hit those pull-ups, like you shake his hand and be like, "All right, good job."
I think what I meant more by the formula. You're right that they can't like 1-to-1 Spider-Man meme it, but like
Yeah, because Trey and Brunson are different players. They're both good, but they're good at different things.
right. I more meant like the 22 offensive rebounds and just it's staring right at me. 10
But
of
that's
41
a
from
result of the
3.
stretch floor, right? Because like
Yes,
you're
but being 10
switching,
of
they're switching that.
my
So
point is
Bam's, yeah,
the Hawks didn't shoot well this game was my point. Like that's the Knicks formula is even if we don't shoot well, we could still replicate this
yeah,
type of
absolutely.
formula by multiple possessions.
Yeah.
And I mean, good Lord, the free throw shooting in this game, 16 to 27 for the Hawks. I think many a Knicks fan has recognized or remembers a bad free throw shooting night for the Knicks, even if they are getting their free throws. So look, it's why I'm trying to fully um not fully discount what happened pre-Milwaukee series, but I do think something clicked for the Heat, which is why I'm trying to give them the respect that like that's the most recent version of them that
Why'd
we
your
saw.
chat saying I don't watch games? I'm literally describing what's happening on the floor.
Oh, you're in our chat now. Look at you. Oh, this is gonna be great
I've-
for the pod later. Okay.
I don't want to halt the show with somebody asking like an injury question on a role player, so I just kind of responded to the guy. But
Nah, you're good. Next up, Juanon. Shout out Juanon, one of our patrons. Giancarlo. What? Oh my god.
what? If Miami's an overrated, well, you read the question.
Hold
And
on.
I'll
Why
respond.
is Miami the most overrated city in America? And miss me with the BS because I lived on Brickell for years. Also, thoughts on Brunson now? Still cute, or you smart enough to fear him us yet?
Why is Miami catching strays? Did you? What's wrong with it? That's like, y'all New Yorkers clearly like it because you keep moving here.
No, the ones that are in the chat right now, like me and everybody else, we stayed. We're still here. We're outside in the
I
words of
like
Jada
it. I
Kiss,
think the
okay?
most
We're
overrated
not
city in
in
America is
Miami.
LA is the most overrated city in America. I think you guys to direct your ire to the West Coast because that city is like discount Miami. It's not as nice. It is also way more expensive. Yeah, no, I think LA is the most
It's
overrated
the New
city in
York
America.
traffic with the without the perk of Miami weather, you know?
Yeah, it's just and LA is like really spread out. Miami's like super. I mean, Miami-Dade County is like a very big sprawling county, but like
Mhm.
the city limits, like Wynwood, Brickell, city of Miami is like pretty contained, and the beach is right there as well. So like, I think it's a much more like it's easier to navigate than LA, which is like super sprawling. And I don't know. I don't really like LA. LA kind of stinks.
So what is your take on Brunson now?
Brunson's good.
Oh, we've upgraded from cute to good, everybody.
He's a good player.
We
Like,
made
what
it.
do I don't? I guess like he's your guy, which I get. Like
Mhm.
he's a good player. Like like he's a lot better than I thought he was gonna be, and like that's awesome. And like that's a great contract for New York. Like, am I putting him in the Steph tier? No.
No, doesn't
Are
go
your
there.
fans? Your fans are mad at me because I'm like he can't hit pull ups like Trae Young, which is like a level of delusion that I don't know. Maybe he does learn to hit pull ups like Trae Young, but like I don't know. Can you pull the numbers how he is on pull ups from 50 feet? Can
That's the
somebody
thing.
can,
The
like
range
chat? You're
that
saying that I
Trae
don't watch
gets.
the games, so pull me the film, pull me the numbers. What is he doing from 50 feet?
I don't think. Listen, you're with me. I
But
don't
like
think that.
people like to talk shit, and I was like, okay, like I'm not. I don't. Andrew, you know that I don't come on here, and if I'm wrong, I say, hey, I was wrong, or hey, I make a correction. I don't know everything. We're all human, but if you got shit to say, then come pull it out. Am I like, you know what I mean? Like I think I try to keep it real. Like I was wrong about Brunson. I come on your platform, and I was supposed to come on after Miami lost. Obviously a couple things happened in New York news. I wasn't able to come on. I did record a segment for you eating my words because I am a man of my word. So I I came, for the ire of your audience, but of course, I know a New York
we
legend
scratched
passed
it. Yeah, we
away
scratched it.
and the vibe wasn't right for that. But like, I'll come take my medicine, but don't say I don't watch the games because I'm telling you what happened. And if I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. So come on, bring it.
And I'll vouch. Giancarlo watches the games, and let's hopefully Jalen Brunson continues to.
I didn't say that Trae Young is better than Brunson. Why y'all putting words in my mouth? Did I say that?
Giancarlo, let's stop looking at the chat now. Like, there people are talking. I promise you, we're good. We're good.
You know what I mean? Like,
let's hold on. Let's got a couple more questions, and then we'll get out of here.
We'll move.
Josh, so focused again. Per the play-in, I don't think you're supposed to look at it as a positive thing, as a good team. It's a last chance thing for teams who underwhelmed. And then he follows up, but Miami's not a good team, so I get it.
Agreed.
Yes. So like that's if you fall into the play-in, I get it. Like if you're a team like OKC this year or like NOLA last year, you save your season and its credibility with getting into the play-in, which is why I understand it.
I wonder, so like kind of to answer that question like more seriously, like I think if you're because the play-in affects your draft status. So like if you're a team that like is young and like if you're like the Orlando Magic, like do you want to be in the play-in or like do you want to like help your pick? I think like that's different. Like I think like an Oklahoma City the same. Well, I think they're kind of at the point where I think they need to start winning games. So it's like there's some teams that it's good for, some teams that it's bad for. Like I said, I wasn't like a fan of it as a Heat fan because like you said, we fell into it. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Bernard Richardson. Sorry if this is talked about already, but what does Miami do better than the Cavs that we should be worried about after the last round?
I think so. Question. Cleveland's offense was really not good. I think Miami has bigger wings that score, like Jimmy. I think with Mitchell, so like Cleveland's more guard heavy, right? So like I know that they let Garland go one-on-one with Jalen, and then when kind of if Jalen were to get beat, you have Mitchell or RJ, you have like these huge wings kind of helping on a small guy. And I think if you're Miami, one of the things you do well is Miami gets to the free throw line a lot because Jimmy's like really like a super engine of that. So you have a wing, not a small, kind of going into the paint. I think Miami's really good at matchup manipulation. I don't think Cleveland's super good at like hunting that. And that's, again, this is like on offense, that's all like what Jimmy does. Jimmy's really good at hunting kind of matchups and stuff like that. And I think what, Cleveland's a better defense than Miami, but I think what Miami does better than Cleveland is I think they're a little more versatile because of Spo and Bam. They can switch, they can do a lot of things, and they can play so many coverages that I don't think Cleveland can or has in their playbook. I think if you watch like the Atlanta series or the Celtics series and kind of see like their Miami or even the Philadelphia series, they're all different schemes and they're all like super different coverages. And I think Miami's really good at kind of that chameleon. Like, okay, like we'll scheme to our opponent, which isn't always the case. Like when LeBron was here, Spo was like, we're running our stuff and they adjust to us. And I think with kind of this group, he's been like, okay, well, with Jimmy and Bam, they're two super versatile defenders. Let's mold ourselves to what we need to do. Like they were a switch team in the regular season. They played drop against the Bucks. I imagine they'll play drop against the Knicks. So like we'll see kind of like how the series progresses. But I think kind of that's their advantage. Like that's what they do better than Cleveland. I think Cleveland's a better team. And I'd go back to see like what do the Knicks do better than the Bucks, right? Other than offensive rebound. Stuff like that. So it's kind of like styles make fights. You know what I mean? So it's like I think that New York has like Miami is a good defensive rebounding team, but they're a shaky defensive rebounding team.
Did you do that on purpose? Styles make fights? That was the name of our pod this morning.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. No,
yeah.
I was quoting I don't know if your chat, they may make fun of me, but I play some esports. I play competitive Melee.
Okay.
Super Smash Melee, and Brandon, Melee legend, always kind of says Styles make fights when he does like his commentary on players. So little ode to where I came from.
My brother will appreciate. He is huge into esports. He will appreciate that reference when he listens to this later. Jocelyn focused with another one. Can we admit the Bucks were poorly coached, players were not focused, and their best player was injured? This is a different series from Miami. I think we've talked about that throughout.
Wow, which players weren't focused?
So I think the specifics to those last two games down the stretch.
They were scared. I think Milwaukee.
That's where they were shook, but they were shook by, I think, can be replicated in this series. I do think Tibbs will have a better answer for it. What they were shook by was Jimmy Butler. And that's the biggest thing I keep going back to was like, is Jimmy going to do that in this series,
So, yeah, and I think so. and like Jockey Flake say, can we admit? I think I've done nothing but admit like these things. Like I thought Milwaukee, and I will say this, and you can like look at on my Twitter. I have like a lot of threads on the game, and I go back and I kind of fine comb. Bud makes adjustments. They're just like micro adjustments. He
Yeah.
doesn't make like Giannis did defend Butler like a lot down the stretch. And the big thing in that series to me was they put Wes Matthews back on Jimmy when he got healthy. And Wes Matthews really bothered Jimmy. So what Spo did was, at the nth hour, made another adjustment, which kind of bringing him off ball, off pin downs with Bam facilitating at the elbow. And Bam hit enough jump shots to make that work. So, like Bud made adjustments. They trapped Jimmy a couple times, in game 3, and he really made them pay. They would kind of run an empty side pick and roll with Jimmy and Love, which I imagine they're going to show New York a lot. They're going to show New York that look too, which I think if you're New York, I think you could switch that if you manipulate the matchup. Because like if Kevin Love is going to post up Josh Hart or something, I don't know, you take that. And I think if you get Mitchell Robinson on Jimmy, that's kind of an interesting prospect because Jimmy has struggled with size in the past. So, there's like different elements to every team, but like Milwaukee trapped that and Jimmy made him pay with the slip to Love, or he was able to kind of take the ball early and Giannis was out of position. He was able to kind of take Holiday off the dribble. So, like I think Bud made adjustments, micro adjustments. I don't think they were like super big. And I do think that like he is absolutely like at the top of the list to blame. But like none of you are blaming Drew Holiday, who absolutely fucking cooked. Like Drew Holiday is like skating for A, playing like crap on offense, which Miami did a great job on him, and B, like getting absolutely like barbecued by Jimmy. And like it's just kind of funny how that works.
Kevin Danishevsky, if Miami loses, what do they do in the offseason?
That's actually a great question. Not for why you think it's a great question, because I think locally people are thinking Jimmy let Riley off the hook. I think people fans were not happy with the way that the team really didn't make moves. I mean, the team dumped a second round pick to offload Dedmon so that they can then sign Love and be under the tax. The team was very interested in staying under the luxury tax.
You had said that when we talked right after the deadline, that's what you were expecting they do,
Yeah, and so they're gonna be a tax team next year. There's like no way to avoid that unless they somehow get off of Duncan, which I don't unless they give up that pick, which that would be like really bad. I'd be like really upset about that. But I don't know if they do that. Well, however, now I don't know how familiar. I don't want to get too like a lot of their stuff is cap stuff, really, because of this new CBA and the second apron. So if for your audience, if I don't know how much you guys talked about it.
Oh, we do. Shout out Jeremy Cohen, our capologist. We're big of our cap or no cap is our off-season series.
That second apron is going to be really important because Butler's Supermax kicks in next offseason. You get off Kyle's money. Bam's extension continues to go. Tyler's extension continues to increase, and Duncan's money continues to increase. And at least they get Kyle off the books. But again, you have to fill out a team. And at this point, they're super. So it's actually a really interesting offseason. Not because like if they lose, it's a failure. Because already, like I think you ask anybody in the organization as a Heat fan, like considering the dog shit season they had, like it's kind of this is like already a success. Losing to the Knicks is gonna suck. I think for the fans, like you guys are gonna go off on us, and like I don't think the Heat like losing to the Knicks at any time. Riley doesn't want to lose to the Knicks.
But real quick, to Kevin's question, would it be enough of a disappointment?
No, it's already a success. Like
it's already a success. Okay.
I think they won a series, and like I said all year, I'm like, I think this is a second round out team. I didn't think the second round would be the Knicks. That changes my math a little bit, but I thought like they play like a higher seed, like the Sixers or the Celtics or the Bucks in round 2, and I would have said, well, I think that they'll probably lose that series, but make it competitive. Like that's like as I was like, that's like the most I'll do. But yeah, that's kind of where I think a lot of their stuff this offseason is cap stuff. It's like, okay, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent are free agents. Which one do we keep? And can we keep both at a good number? I think if they do that, the fan base is going to be pretty upset because they want new players. Do they keep Love? Cody Zeller is like the third center, and I know that he wants to stay. I know they like him. I mean, talk to people in the organization. So it's a little touchy. Like they're gonna explore their options. They're gonna see what Duncan and a pick kind of can fetch them as an upgrade. They're gonna explore what Tyler and a pick and stuff can get you.
Do they go whale hunting?
So like, who becomes available? Like if Lillard,
Dame
and
and Kawhi are the big ones that I'm staring
I
at.
think
Dame and
Kawhi.
really the Clippers are
I
the
don't know
ones
they'd be
I'm
in on
staring at.
Kawhi
Okay.
because that could be like if they empty the cupboard for Kawhi and he just like doesn't play, that sets your franchise back so
Mhm.
much. I think Lillard's the guy that they'd want, and I just think that Kawhi is notably very. I don't want to call him difficult because I think that these players have a right to like kind of control their body and stuff. Like I don't want to say that, but the organization runs a certain way, and I just don't think Kawhi fits in that mold. Um, they like their letter is the law, and Kawhi's letter is his law, and I think that that kind of thing isn't going to mesh well, which is why LeBron ultimately left.
Mm.
Um, I think that they'll try to go in for Dame, but again, Miami's packages don't look as good as other teams with similar assets. So like a player has to demand I'm going there or not, like Dragic did, right? Like or like I mean, he's obviously
Mhm.
like much less a player, or like Jimmy did. Like
I was gonna say
it's
Jimmy's the
there,
bigger
but yeah,
example. Yeah.
Jimmy would have
Yeah.
been the one. It's there or bust, and at that point, you now have a lot more leverage and you can make certain moves happen. So their outlook is like not the most comfortable, especially given their cap. The second apron thing throws them for a total loop. And I haven't even crunched numbers yet. We're gonna do that, when they lose or they win. I doubt they win the title.
That's
But
the thing. If they
yeah,
win the series though, then the calibrate like I'll entertain it. Like if the Heat win the series and they're playing the Celtics and it's a competitive series, does that also recalibrate things? It's like, oh, this was the
no,
team
I
all
don't.
year
I don't
long.
think so. I don't think, and I don't think it should. I think you know, at the end of the day, like they're gonna go as far as Jimmy takes them, and the
Mm-hmm.
rest of these dudes they know are replaceable. And I
Gotcha.
think they know that Jimmy's bailing them out.
Okay. So last question. I kept you longer than I said, by
All
the way.
good,
So
all good.
thank you, by the way. Last question is from Benjamin D'Souza. Let's talk psychology. Wow, where's this going? I trust Miami's guys, Jimmy, Bam, UD, Love, and Lowry,
Lifer,
to
good
not get
lifer.
rattled. Okay. I don't trust Randall Barrett quickly. Thoughts? Wow. Don't trust quickly or Barrett.
Well, like there's something to be said about like a guy's first time in this situation, right? Like Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Arnovitz, one of my favorite ESPN guys, says
Same.
grown ass men win championships, right? And it's why Riley has always been obsessed with veterans. It's why like teams trade for veterans at the deadline. Sometimes young teams go out and do crazy shit, but like I think the Warriors remember when they first kind of had a playoff run, they lost in the second round to like a super vet heavy team, right? Like they weren't there yet, and I think that's kind of like the growing pains of the league. Randall, for Randall Barrett, all these guys, it's the first like big second round matchup for a lot of these Heat guys. Like Bam, and Jimmy have been to the finals. Lowry is obviously a champion. Kevin Love is obviously a champion. A lot of these guys have playoff experience, so I think that's kind of why like they don't get frazzled like that. Like I think you saw in Cleveland, like those guys got frazzled, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think this actually helps the Knicks a lot that they're at home because that crowd's going to be amazing and that's going to be really helpful. And they're going to have, game 7 at home, worst case scenario. And that's going to be like a really calming, stable force. Although the Knicks have been super good on the road this year. I know they've been one of the best road teams.
Yep. Yeah.
So
So
like they
it's
have,
a toss up for me.
and
Of
Tibbs teams
like,
are tough,
yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
Tibbs teams are always tough as hell. I don't know if you saw the clip going around today of Jeff Teague talking about Tibbs and Jimmy.
Yes, that was
Yeah,
outstanding. The
yeah,
incident where Jimmy went to practice
yeah.
and
I mean,
the scrimmage. Yeah.
Tibbs' hands always shaking because he's excited. He loves these moments.
Mhm.
So like as much
I
as
noticed the Tibbs handshake this year too. I didn't realize that's
I
like
didn't
a
feel
thing
good
that
making
goes
fun of
back.
that. I don't know if that's a sign of something else or if that's just a tick.
I think he has a tick, which is what I
hope it's a
classified
tick
it
because
as
I mean I guess Jeff Teague's his player, so I was like I wasn't
Mhm.
super comfortable with like everyone making fun of him. I was like let's chill out, but
It just doesn't
could be a tick.
surprise me.
We all do weird shit.
Yeah, like someone as neurotic and as focused as he is, it doesn't have a
No,
tick. Like it would be shock me if he didn't.
You're
Like
top 1% of basketball minds in the world. You know what I mean? So like, yeah,
right.
you weird shit.
So we've reached the end of this. How you feeling
about what?
about well your experience on the live stream and this series?
Listen, I love an active chat. I have fun, man. I have it pulled up. I was reading. I love going back and forth, y'all. I love talking to you.
Did you see them call you Pedro Griffins, Hispanic Peter Griffin?
Yeah, I did see that. Hispanic Peter Griffin sounding a lot more humble this time around. Just
Props.
focused. Yeah.
Yes. I found that to be the funniest thing.
That was funny. Listen,
Yes.
like I'll say, like I like the Knicks, like earn my respect. Like famously, like on my pod, I'm very, I need a lot of information to change my mind on something.
Mm-hmm.
Like and even with this Heat team, like I was like, well, let's see how they look in February, and then I'll make my decision on how they look because I'm a person that likes a lot of data. So yeah, I slept on New York. I was like, I'm not like a super fan. I'm like, I look at the names on paper, I watch their games, and like kind of like I wasn't like a fan of their like their shot profile and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
like they're a good team. Like, I know I was called the mid. Like, we're kidding around. Like, listen, they won a playoff series against a healthy team. They made the second round. They're a home seed, given the circumstances of this round.
Right.
So credit where credit's due. Brunson's played awesome. He's been one of the better players in the postseason. And they did this with Randall kind of giving him nothing in the first round. He's been super sneaky.
Super crazy too. The fact that they beat that Cavs team
And then Grimes,
Randall having
Quentin
a
Grimes is out too, right?
Grimes hit 3 shots the entire
Isn't he hurt?
series.
Didn't he
He's
get
gonna
hurt?
play. He's gonna play. He had a shoulder impingement, but
Did he miss time?
He missed games 4 and 5 and missed most of the game.
Yeah, like you
most
guys.
Of the game
he's a starter, right?
Most of game 3. He is Josh Hart's de facto like 6 starter.
But you missed like you were out a rotation player and a half because
I guess
and
then quickly
not there. Yeah,
gave you really nothing on offense outside.
That's
really
the one guy,
games,
Andrew. Before we go, I think he's like probably the biggest. I know that we talked a lot about Mitchell Robinson. I actually think Quickly is like the biggest X factor for the.
I had him in those top 6. Yeah, I think that's an X factor.
Miami has a problem guarding fast guys, pun intended, Quickly, right? But he's really good. I talked a little bit like he's really good at kind of screen navigation, but he's very quick, and that is 100% Miami's biggest weakness is kind of their point of attack defense. That's why they switch Bam so much. So that's a guy that I'm going to look at that if they can contain him, I'll feel a lot better. But he is actually one of the guys I fear the most on the Knicks because of kind of how he leverages his speed, kind of get into the basket. And he can just like get by dudes like super quick.
Yeah, I think that's what I keep going back to with the Cavs series is how the Knicks were able to dominate without getting really anything consistent on offense. Outside of offensive rebounding, like they just shot 28% from 3. And so that's why I keep going back to like if there's any hint of an uptick or improvement in the Knicks shooting, then they're gonna look better on that end of the floor, which could be different. Okay, so we come to the end of this, Giancarlo G.
Yes, sir.
And the last question again, Josso Focus, your generosity is appreciated. So do we know where a 7-game series is going? I'll hang up and listen. Shout outs to Robert Cross.
First time, long time?
I'm gonna look at you. I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. I am at now Knicks in 6. It should come as no surprise that I'm doing.
So you have them winning the closeout in Miami.
Yes. Yes. They closed out in Cleveland. My thing this whole postseason has been like I've seen the Knicks win a lot of big road games this year. Yeah. I think them closing out on the road is not that big a deal.
I hate picking series. I don't like it. I'm gonna do
it.
But
I'm sure you're confident the Heat are.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for you
because
I respect you and I love the show. But I normally don't pick series. I don't even pick them on my own.
Oh, if you don't want to,
no, I'll do it. I'll do it because like I think if I think about the series, I'm like, okay, I like theoretically the matchup for Miami because I like drops. I think drops are just generally favorable for them. I think they'd have the best player in the series. And I think if Miami can limit New York's offensive rebounding, I just think that they have a couple more things working in their favor. I think they have to take care of the ball too. I think like kind of those factors have to happen. And then I just think they have like a little bit more. New York, I think, is really dependent on those things. So that's why I like the matchup for Miami. And like theoretically, like, yeah, New York's not as good as Milwaukee, and Miami just beat Milwaukee, but I don't think you're gonna get the same kind of Jimmy performance out of that.
Shooting.
So yeah, or Miami shooting for that matter, which I'm like kind of shaky about. So it's like a part of me is like, okay, well, I could totally see Miami winning in 6. I could totally see New York winning in 4. I could see Miami winning in 7. I could see Miami winning in 5. I can see all these scenarios because I think that both teams are they're pretty evenly matched, I think, in the sense of like, I think both teams have a lot of cards to play. So I know that's like a kind of a non-answer. I gave you like 4 predictions.
This is a toss-up series for me, dude. I gotta be honest. I'm picking the Knicks because I owe it to. We also like it's become a thing here at Knicks Film School. Like our shout out to Mensa, one of our casual Friday crew. Not only did he pick the Knicks in 5 over the Cavs, he picked the exact series how it would go. They'd win game 1, games 3, 4, and 5. So that's just like how the direction we've gone with it. But I don't fault you with the Jimmy Butler factor of it all and the Spo factor of it all, thinking it's a top series. I think that's
Spo
more the discourse that I've seen.
Your chat may hate this, but I just think Spo has the edge over Tibbs.
He does. I'd say that it's the one. And I'll say this real quick: it's the last playoff series, if I'm projecting in the future, that the Knicks don't have the playoff, don't have the coaching edge.
Yeah, because
that they would potentially
Missoula
face. I give that to Tibbs. I give it to Tibbs over Doc. I think.
I guess the finals is different because, like, Kerr,
if it's Kerr, that's the only one. And I've also we can talk more about this offline. I would have I have a side eye at Kerr. I think.
Oh, are you Team Light Years? Bay Area Aristotle.
I am a little bit. Victory Machine was one of my favorite books when I read
Andy Liu. Who's Bay Area Aristotle? Is it Kerr or is it Bob Myers? I need to know.
I think I'm in the camp of it that's a baseball team over there. Like, you just plug in whatever manager as long as it's not Mark Jackson, and I think you could have been fine.
Oh, that was a big one.
Yeah. Point being,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, I'm with you. I totally get it.
But I think like this is the last series that like the coaching edge will not be tilted toward the Knicks, because I respect Spo that much.
What about Monty?
I think it's a toss-up. But at that point, if you're facing the Suns, you're facing like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and like that team. Like, you're still gonna have to go
and the nut puncher
talent and the nut puncher, yes, and Chris Paul. So I'm not gonna hold your feet to the fire for a prediction, but you're leaning the Heat and their advantages can win the series.
Yeah, I think that they have like, I just, like I said, and I said this on my pod, the Knicks play like a fucking rugged style ball where they're going to offensive rebound and turn you over and get to the line. Like, they play a very physical brand of basketball, and they play bully ball. And if I'm Miami, I force the Knicks to play like actual half court basketball, and I think that's kind of Miami's recipe for winning. If they can't force the Knicks to do that, then they lose. And I just think it's as simple as that, coupled with like Miami needing, I don't think they need to shoot as well against Milwaukee. I mean, New York didn't have like the best defense in the regular season. I do think that like they have soft spots, right? Like, they're like places that they can hunt. Like, even if Hart does a good job on Jimmy, there's still like other ways to like manipulate matchups on the floor. So like I said, and for New York, like, quickly is a problem. Like, I could totally see like Brunson like going to the line a billion times and like getting Bam in foul trouble and it being like a problem. I kind of expect them to win that matchup. I think that Spo has done always a good job when teams are very centralized. I think he's really good at taking away that thing. So we'll have to see. Like, it's going to be more difficult because their offensive rebounding kind of prevents you from doing that as freely. So I'm excited to watch the series. I'm excited for basketball.
Last thing before I let you go, because I'm realizing now the when the chat was I sensed a little getting under your skin. When Willis Reed passed away, you came on that day and we recorded a thing. I just was like not into it, and I was not up for honestly just up to recording a pod.
Of course, yeah.
And
about something silly,
right? Like, we recorded something, and I just was like, I can't release this. You did take it back, not take it back, but you were like, all right, Brunson's the real deal. Like, Brunson is legitimate. I see what you see now. I do want to not call you out, and it's the reason why I have you in my life as my Miami Heat informed person. Other than Jeremy Taché, I like him. I actually respect Ryan Cortez a ton too. Mike Ryan, good Lord, stop strawmanning. No one is saying that Jalen Brunson is Dwayne Wade. Okay, no one has gone.
Is Mike doing that? Don't listen to Mike.
Oh my gosh, dude,
Mike's a friend of the show. Don't listen to Mike.
I know that he's.
I'm
sure he's a friend of your show, and I'm like listen, behind the scenes, Mike Ryan's like my inspiration for all creative decisions at Knicks Film School. As far as executive producers go,
Mike's
get it.
Go, yeah,
right.
Mike and Hawk. Put some respect on Mark Hawk.
I wasn't there when I go back. My literal first year is after Hawk left, so I don't go back that far with Le Batard show, and also I'm a super follower with Mike, because shout out gambling advice. Having said that, like, the straw manning of like, oh, they're giving Jalen Brunson props. I guess he's better than Dwayne Wade now. Oh, this thing that you guys
stop falling for it. You don't
This
get
thing
the
you
show.
have with Bam Adebayo. I maybe
Stop.
don't get the
You
show.
fell for it. They
This
get
Bam
everybody.
Adebayo,
They get
Chris
everybody,
Bosh
dude.
thing, man, I swear.
It
I
comes
have to
for us
stop
all.
listening to my favorite radio show this week because you guys don't know how to intelligently talk about the Knicks. Every conversation is, oh, well, the New York, they get one guy, and now they're better, the greatest player
You
of
gotta
all
know
time in Knicks
better.
history.
You
It's
gotta
like
know
David
better.
Sampson. Just go back to ruining the Marlins. Like, I love
Hey,
how you have
man.
a show about business, and yet
Fuck
all you
David.
were
Fuck
was
David
a
Sampson. I
horrific
hate that guy.
businessman.
That guy's
I'm
a
not
snake.
surprised.
That guy's
Anyway.
a snake. No one likes him. Yo, super shout out to the Levitard Show. They do this behind the scenes, and I'm gonna out them. What they do for us personally, we do a pride drive every year.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Chris Cody always organizes with Mike and the rest of the guys with the shipping container a tour. They auction off a tour of the studio, and you get to hang out and have lunch with the crew and sit in for a show. They give that experience for our pride drive, and it raises. I mean, we raised $12,000, for pride, especially in Florida, where it's so. Like, shout out to Libertard Show for being.
I just said all that shit, and now you bring up something that matters, and I have to.
Well, that's
like,
what. Well, you
good
fell
job,
for it.
Ryan.
I want to give them their flowers because like they're just genuinely like good dudes that like
yes, very
they're
good
big
people.
time and they give back to the community and like people like me who are inspired by them. So like just big shout out to them. But you fucking fell for it, bro. I can't believe they got you, dude. They got you.
I also think there is some intention there that I may not get the show. You don't get the Knicks. That's my response. You don't get the Knicks.
You don't get the Knicks.
Yeah, well done. That was a great Poppy impersonation.
Listen, I've grown up with relatives that English is their second language.
Bro, that's how I bonded with my dad when I was still living at home. We were just like that. That was my grandpa.
Listen, we know
we'd watch Highly Questionable every day.
We'll have that. We have that. So listen, I've had many relatives like Gonzalo. So I know what it is.
Before we get out of here, plug Miami Heat Beat and all the stuff you guys do.
Guys, listen, I'm not gonna try to get you to listen to Heat content. Listen, come over and talk shit after games. If y'all win, come into our chat and talk shit. If you lose, come to our chat and talk shit. I promise we'll engage. We'll put your comment up and we'll all argue and it'll be really fun. Our post-game shows are great. Have a drink. Come. We talk about the game. If you want to watch us melt down, we do that. If you want to talk shit, we do that. I do think that hangover time is one of the coolest, most unique things kind of in sports media right now. So give us a check out. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/Miami Heat Beat, or catch the replay on YouTube. We always post it on our YouTube page or listen on the pod. But, I do pods, but they're boring. They're just basketball X's and O's. You want the good stuff, which is a raw emotion of post game. So check us out on Twitch or on Twitter @MIA Heat Beat for this series because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. And if you want the pod for X's and O's, I'm very level headed on those, and I'll have a lot of Nick guests coming through to talk about the series. So if you want like kind of as objective breakdowns as I can do, come through and we'll talk about the series that way. So check us out.
I gotta recommend the pod you did with Nikias Duncan from the Dunker Spy. That was. It's the heavy hitting X's and O stuff.
That's my guy, bro. Nikias.
He's used to write for you guys, right?
Yeah, Nikias.
Yeah.
Nikias started off. Well, he started off writing for us. So proud to see like where that's my guy. Just good friend of mine. So
go check that out. Those of you watching, you know what to do. Give the KFS bump, whether it be to their YouTube channel or to the podcast feed. 5 stars for Nixon 5. How's that?
Let's do it. Give them the 5 stars. They deserve it, guys. You don't know how much that helps content creators. It's not even Andrew shilling it. I'm telling you, like, give the high review and the rating on YouTube. All that stuff helps. You don't understand how much that helps. So give them all that.
Gee, I wish I could say good luck in this series. I wish you the worst of luck in this series, but thank you as always for coming on. I look forward to talking to you more.
We're talking again. Don't worry.
Well, of course we will.
We're doing this one way or the other.
I have to come over to enemy territory at some point in the future. All righty. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and of course, go Knicks.